In this video, we take a look at solving a network using linear algebra. So we are given this figure. It shows the number of vehicles per hour through a network of streets in a neighborhood, and we're asked to solve the system for each x value. We say x sub I here with the coefficient I standing in for the index. So we've got x1 through x5, so we're going to have 5 systems of equations. So when we analyze our network, we want to think about the input and the output. We're going to say input equals output here. And so I'm going to start with this first node here. So in that first node, we've got 400 and x2 going in. So I'm going to say 400 plus x2 equals my output, which is just x1 coming out of this. So that's our first equation. Our second equation will go to the next node over here, right here. So we've already gotten this node. So in our second node here, x1 and x3 are going in. So our input will be x1 plus x3. And our output here is x4 and 600. So we'll say x4 plus 600. And then we come to this next node here. In this next node, we've got x4 and x5 coming in. And then our output here is 100. Let's see, and this node over here has input. It looks like 300 is the input there. And then the outputs are x2, x3, and x5. So we've got x2 plus x3 plus x5 here. All right. So I'm going to head into the next screen and rearrange these equations. I want to get my equations into forms that will work for my augmented matrix. So I'm going to put all of the constants and numerical values on the right side of my equation, and I'll have my x values on the left side of the equation. All right, so my equations here are going to be x1 minus x2 equals 400 after rearranging. And my next equation is going to be x1 plus x3 minus x4 equals 600. And then I've got x4 plus x5 equals 100. That was in okay form. And then my last equation is x2 plus x3 plus x5 equals 300. All right, notice that my first two equations start with x1, and then I jump to an equation that starts with x4 and end up with an equation that starts with x2. So when I create my augmented matrix, I want to flip-flop these rows just to make my life a little bit easier here, so that my x4 row starts last in terms of thinking about echelon form. All right, so I am going to record now my augmented matrix following the equations we wrote, but flip-flopping the last two so that the equation that starts with x4 is in the bottom row. So our first column is 1, 1, 0, 0. Our next column is negative 1, 0, 1, 0. Our third column is going to be 0, 1, 1, 0. And our fourth column is going to be 0, 0, 1, 1. And then our solutions are the last column, so that will be 400, 600, 300, and 100. Okay, so you can see that by moving, I unshared by mistake. So you can see that by moving this equation here to the last row, that has gotten me a little bit closer to triangular form. And it looks like this should be a 1 right here. I made a little mistake when writing here. All right, so now we are in business. We've got our matrix, our augmented matrix, matching our equations here. And now we are going to convert to reduced row echelon form. So we're going to head over to Simpy and have Simpy go ahead and do those calculations for us. So I'm going to call my matrix M because last time when I called it a different letter, Simpy was not happy with that. And then I use a capital M for matrix for my function. Start with 2 brackets, and I'm going to input my rows as they are. 1, -1, 0, 0, 0, 400. Now you might notice this equation has 5 unknowns, but only 4 rows or 4 equations. So we're going to have some dependence here. And then our next row is 1, 0, 1, -1, 0, and 600. Let's see, our third row is 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. And our last row is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. And, oh, I forgot the 100. Did I get an extra 0 in there? Nope, I'm okay. And then we do double brackets and the parentheses to close it off, and we'll hit enter. We'll see if I made any mistakes. So if I hit M, my matrix should come back. And I did make a mistake somewhere in there. Oh, it looks like I forgot to put the value for the third row. So the 300 should be in there. So if you do a mistake with a matrix and you don't have the right values in there, Simpy will definitely give you an error. So let's look back if I hit M and see what comes back. All right, it looks like I've got my matrix that matches what I should have matching my equations. So now we want the reduced row echelon form of this matrix. So we are going to type M, capital M, because we called our matrix, the RREF, and then parentheses, and then we just want the first result. So that's why we do this bracket with the 0 in there. It gives us the first result from this function. And here's my matrix in reduced row echelon form. So notice the bottom row is all zeros. That's because we had some dependence in here. We had the extra variable, and we only had 4 equations here. Okay, so let's record our equation and go back to finishing our solutions here. So our reduced row echelon form matrix is here. 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 700. And then we've got 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 300. Then we've got 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 100. And then that last row is all zeros. All right, so we are going to define some free variables here. So I'm going to let x5 be, I'll call that one t because it comes second, and then I'll let x3 be s as our free variable. And as we saw before, you could change, if you like, which variables are the free variables, because we're going to define the variables in terms of s and t, but we'll go ahead and do it this way. And then we can rewrite our solutions now, thinking about x1 in terms of like 700 minus x3 and x5 here. So it's going to be minus s and minus t. So let's write that out. And then x2, we head back. X2 is going to be 300, and here's x2 right here. And then it's also going to be minus x2 minus x5. So it'll be 300 minus s minus t. And then x4 down here is going to be 100 minus x5, or 100 minus t. You can see, because we just had 3 rows here with solutions, that's why we ended up with 2 free variables, because we had some extra variables in here creating a dependent relationship. All right, and then you might try to find specific values. So say you're told, okay, x3 equals 0 and x5 equals 100. We'll say if here. Then you could go ahead and do some calculations. So then you say, okay, well then x1 is going to be 700 minus 100 equals 600. X2 would be 300 minus 100, or 200. And X4 would be 100 minus 100, because X5 is our t. And so X4 would be 0. So you could write all your solutions here as x1 equals 600, x2 equals 200, x3 equals 0, x4 equals 0, and x5 was 100 when the initial conditions are x3 equals 0 and x5 equals 100. Okay, so you can work on solving some similar questions. I'll give you one in the group work to work on. You can work with a system and set up the matrix to solve it.